really exciting session that Lachlan's going to run. So I'm Prue Gonzalez, but I'm here with Lachlan Kalash, the superstar of these sessions. And Lachlan's put a lot of work into creating our resources for today, running through the technology, testing lots of things, and coming up with some top tips. So as always, thank you so much, Lachlan. This university probably wouldn't run without you, I think we can safely say.
I'm happy for it to run without me most days.
Don't say that, Lachlan, no. So thank you very much for coming along. And this session on podcasting is perhaps a really timely one. And we've already got lots of questions in the chat box coming through, lots of comments. Lachlan and myself have been met with emails from people talking about the podcasting they're doing in their sessions already, all sorts of things. And it is a really timely topic for us to have a look at. So we know that our students are online. We know that teaching online is about meeting our students where they're at, and our students are everywhere, aren't they? And I think podcasting brings another nice element to the way we can reach our students, in that it's not necessarily visual. Students can be doing something else. At this point, we all seem a little bit locked to our computers. Podcasts give us a way for us and our students to get away from our computers and listen to something while we're doing another type of activity, which is another great way to learn. So there's lots of different things that we can do with podcasts. So today we'll talk about a whole range of different types of things, an explanation of what they are, what they aren't, some exemplars of what people are doing at the university. Lachlan will take us through a walkthrough, looking in particular at Anchor FM, and we'll also talk about Panopto. We'll talk about how we can access these, and then some teaching ideas and tips and tricks, along with a Q&A. So we always have high hopes for what we'll get through in these sessions. They usually are quite fast-paced, but keep up with us, but keep asking us questions in the chat box, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we possibly can. So Lachlan, I guess the first question is, we've got a Menti running as well. So already, what does podcasting mean to you? What do you know about podcasts? What do they mean? How many of us listen to them? I listen to them on my daily commute. All sorts of podcasts are out there. And one of the particular things you've probably found is that they're not all the same, are they? Sometimes it's like reading a magazine. Sometimes it's like reading a book. Sometimes it's just listening to friends chatting. There's all different ways that we can do podcasting, and what they sound like and what they can be like for our students. So it's good to see people coming through with some ideas of what podcasting means to you. Flexible, short audio, listening, conversation. Fantastic. So if you want to jump into menti.com, feel free to do that. We'll have that running throughout this session. There's lots of great things, short and sweet sessions, various devices. Yeah, it's fantastic to see a good idea of what's happening out there. So I guess the first question is that we come to, though, officially, Lachlan, what is a podcast? What isn't a podcast? What can a podcast be?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because every second person that you talk to will give you a different response about podcasts. And the meaning is actually evolved over time, like language generally tends to do as it's used. But one of the reasons we, I guess, have this Menti up to begin with is we've asked, what it means to different people. And there's a decent scope in there. And technically speaking, I'm going to bring up the cheat sheet in a second, which I've provided in the chat pod to people. If you have joined late or don't have it, by all means ask for it in the chat pod and someone will share it again. But I'll just drag it across for a second. There's the actual definition of the term podcast, or where it came from originally. It was about play on demand. So the idea was that there would be a subscription service that people would sign up for, and that they would receive audio delivered to them in some way, and hence the term podcast. The funny thing is that over time, the use of the term has basically been assimilated to also include just general audio. And quite often I run into academics that talk about wanting to use podcasts in their subject delivery, and what they're talking about is actually just adding audio into the subjects somewhere. So the subscription aspect or the delivery aspect, not so much. And in fact, it's become more about providing audio, when the term has become synonymous with including audio in your subject somehow. So look, what we're going to be looking at today is two ways of producing podcasts. One is a third-party service that's free called Anchor.fm. We're going to look at that, which is a very, very simple platform for you to build your own audio within, your own podcasts, and start distributing them. But also what you can do with that audio back within your subject sites, basically bringing it back so that it's usable internally as well. We'll also look at how our in-house tool, CSU Replay, can be used for audio production and for creating podcasts as well. So thank you for everyone that's added to this cheat sheet, to this Menti. It's certainly, I guess, proven a point that it means a lot to a lot of different people, but certainly the scope of users that we get in each of these sessions, as with any tool, is incredible. We get people that are absolute beginners that have heard the term podcasting and want to know everything from then on, to also people that are highly proficient in making their own and also want to share what they've been doing. So as Prue said, by all means, please do add in your stories and your questions, etc., all through the chat pod as we go. I will add that this session is really from the ground up, looking at podcasting. It's if you're a high-end user, you may be thinking that I'm covering a lot of stuff that you're already familiar with. So I apologize for that, but that's definitely what we're aiming for. So 47 responders to that Menti without any links provided. Everyone's just follow the instruction there. So it's always good to see that tool being picked up by everyone without any instruction. So let's get into Anchor. So we looked very briefly at the definition of what a podcast is. So it's play on demand audio broadcasts. There's also generally the idea that a podcast will be provisioned as episodes and that there'll be a series of them rather than just a one-off audio file. And this idea of distribution, so perhaps putting it on a digital marketplace like iTunes, for example, or in our case, in the first instance, distributing it to students potentially via i2 or by just giving them a link to an RSS feed. And in line with that, the people that are signing up to get a hold of your podcast will generally end up using a piece of software on a mobile phone or on their computer that's called a feed aggregator, which will basically, all they need is a link, they paste it in there, and then they're signed up to your podcast. And as you make each new episode, they'll receive an update and they can listen to it wherever they need to. So that's kind of the language that we're using in this space. I'm going to have a look at a couple of exemplars first off to show you how it is used internally, and a couple of examples and externally. I don't have thousands of these to share this morning because that would just chew up all our time, and I know that some of you will have done far more than this, but this is just a taster. All right, so let's open up the first one. In fact, while they're loading, I'll just get each of them up. Okay. So, the first one is from the School of Centre for Law and Justice Studies. One of their academics has been producing podcasts to supplement their existing learning materials. The idea that they get to keep using them session after session for whichever subject it will plug into. We do have an equity and trust subject, so this actually feeds nicely into that. And Hayley McEwen, who's the author, produces them on Anchor, which we're going to have a look at today, Anchor.fm. And she makes those audio recordings. She's got a series. There aren't thousands of them. She's made kind of 8 or so initially. And they're on that channel for students to subscribe to. She actually did this, as we can see, some time ago. And the intention basically is that she'll pick up these again probably towards the end of this year and start adding further episodes. So it's not something she's doing all the time, but she's periodically building that library. And the audio goes into Anchor. It gets published there. People are able to sign up using various services up the top there. And you'll see some of the apps that will be familiar to you, like Spotify, or just grabbing a direct RSS feed to put into any number of applications. You've also got Google Podcasts, which is a relatively new platform. Google has had many different podcast aggregator type tools. Google Podcasts is a relatively new one. And as she publishes each of those, people can come to the website of her channel and look at all of them, but more likely they've signed up to this so that they just get a notification. If I play that for a second, bit of intro music, and then someone starts talking.
Welcome to episode 5 of Equity and Trust.
There you go. So she's talking about episodes, and you'll notice in our Menti people are talking about short and sweet, and that's certainly the way that she's produced these. Generally speaking, they're 10 minutes and under when she's made them. Okay, another example. This time we're in an I2 subject site, and inside one of the content areas, the academic has made a podcast. This time they've used SoundCloud, which is a paid podcasting producing tool, podcast production tool, and she's embedded that then within, I guess, a container inside the content area for students to play, and it's part of the learning materials itself. Okay, there's some risk associated with doing this, obviously, in that what happens if the person who's made this and their channel leave the university? Does that mean that the subject and the learning materials are no longer usable, valid, legal? There's a few questions to consider there. The other one for me, more importantly, is that this is a paid platform. So this relies on someone having a subscription. At the moment, the university does not have a subscription to SoundCloud as a platform. So again, all of this relies on that academic continuing to pay themselves for this product and leaving these files up to be shared. So it's an interesting one as an example, because whilst it looks good, there are also risks associated with using your own tools. You can absolutely embed anchor podcasts inside I2, and I'll show you some examples of that, Sophie. Good question. Okay, this time round, we've just got an audio file. So they've used an audio producing tool to come up with an MP3 file, and they've embedded it within the content using the I2 audio tool. Is everyone familiar with the I2 audio tool? Okay, getting some shakes. That's good. When you build content in I2, about halfway down, there's an object called audio that you can add in there. And all you need for this to work, assuming it's going to open up, is the name and to browse for the MP3 file. That's it. At that point, the end result is that you're going to come up with a player, an embedded inline player like this, that the students will be able to click on and play. So you don't need to know anything about code or anything like that. You literally just build content and audio, and that will add it in. So strictly speaking, that's not a podcast through a podcasting channel, but it is definitely a way for you to quickly and easily get audio embedded within the subject site. Okay, so it's, I'll add one now just to respond to some of the comments that I can see in there. All right. I'm going to take this down straight away. So I'm just worried about finding an MP3 file. Okay, there's a file. It's an MP3 file. Do I want it to start automatically? Don't do that. Don't ever do that. People will hate you if you put auto start on. As soon as the page opens, it will just keep playing. Yeah, absolutely, Phil. You probably don't want to loop it. You probably don't want to align it. If you've got hold of a transcript for the file, great, you can attach it. Do you want it hidden or visible? By default, it's on. Do you want to track the number of people that have viewed it? Probably a good idea to turn that on, although it's Blackboard Analytics, so you've probably got a 50-50 chance of it working or being valuable to you at all. Okay, you can also set date and time restrictions. So I'm going to submit this. And then we get our audio embedded, and if I hit play, it'll start playing. Remember the words you told. Okay, and I won't be leaving that copyrighted music inside the subject side, but that's how you get the audio in there quick and easy. Okay, so I can see some nods there, so it looks like that was useful to see. What else have we got going on? So content area, I'm seeing a lot of texts, more texts. Okay, got some embedded YouTube videos. There better be a podcast in here. Thinking, more YouTube, reading, more YouTube, more reading, activity. Was that a podcast? No, that's not a podcast. If I've missed it, someone tell me. Okay, in this case, they've got a podcast which someone else has produced and put onto SoundCloud in this case, that's been made public, and they've just added a hyperlink inside the subject site. So of all the different ways that I suppose we looked at, embedding, linking to different services, this is probably the least aesthetically pleasing, but you're certainly able to just drop a link to a podcast as it stands inside your subject sites. Okay, so that's possible as well. And we had a question before about Anchor and whether or not Anchor FM can be embedded. We're going to have a look at Anchor now, how the product works, but let me just show you what the Anchor podcasts look like when they're embedded in a subject site. Wait for it to load. Okay, here we have a podcast that I've produced in Anchor. It'll give me some embed code when I finish doing that, and I can just copy and paste that into my content area, and it comes up looking like this. Okay, so I'm going to show you how all that's done, but I just wanted to show you what those embedded podcasts look like. You can specify some cover art or images to go with each one, and then they embed, so they can be played or opened up within the website itself. Okay, let's have a look at Anchor. I can see different questions coming in about it, so I think the best way is to actually get into the tool itself. Okay, so I'm going to anchor.fm. Remembering that this is a podcasting creation tool that's free to use. It has paid subscription types, but to be honest, they're not necessary. The free version's perfect for a beginner. And it's going to allow you to do a bunch of things. We're going to create a new episode so we can see what this looks like. But as you publish, all of your episodes will go onto a public website, and and it'll basically give you share options for how to get hold of the channel. We're going to now look at individual episodes. Okay. So I just want to start getting into the audio production part first before we look at more of the specifics. So this is the dashboard for creating audio in Anchor. It's really, really straightforward and simple. It allows you, yes, you can upload audio in here. There was a question before about uploading your own audio. You can also capture it directly. So I've got a headset on, so I might do that for a second. Turn that on. Need to identify which audio source I'm using. We'll go for my headset. Okay, so I'm producing a test podcast today that's going to be looking at blah and blah and blah and blah and blah. Stick around, blah, blah. Stop recording. You make as many of these snippets of audio as you like. So if you're someone that likes to just produce tiny bits and make sure you've got that right, it'll just keep adding them into this list. And then you're able to drag the pieces that you want. You can reuse ones that you've made before, but you drag them across into your episode builder on the right-hand side. We want to hear what that sounds like. Okay, so I'm producing a test podcast today that's going to be, right, so that's going in there. What else might I like to put in apart from me talking? I can do that as many times as I need to. I might put in some transitions. What have we got going on here? Ah, yes, that's not me. Oh, perfect. Right, so I want to start my podcast with a cow. I'm going to drag that in. There's my intro. And then they'll hear me talking. And then you can drag in any number of these transitions if you want to break it up. I'm sure for those of you that have listened to podcasts, you'll note the way that they will use transitions and music, etc., to break up what's going on, particularly if it's a longer type of podcast. And these are really simple and easy to use. It's all free, which is great. So we make as many of those as we want. And then at that point, you can either preview the episode to hear what it's going to sound like. be looking at blah and blah and blah and blah and blah. Okay, so what it's done there basically, because I'd started listening to that file before, it had taken it right through. Let's try again. Stick around, blah, blah. Okay, I might actually produce it. We won't keep playing the cow. I'm going to save the episode. What do I want to call this? The cow wins. Okay, you get a description. So that's only going to really appear to people who open up your episodes in the Anchor website. So don't put too much detail in here if you're going to embed it, is what I'm getting at. If you're going to embed the audio, don't worry about the description. Publish it straight away. Don't want to put in different cover art to go into my podcasts. I'm not going to worry about any of that information. You can put some tags on there. Does it contain explicit content? And maybe the type of information, like bonus episodes, or is it just a standard one? To be honest, I'm just concerned with producing audio at this stage and getting it into a subject site. So that's what I'm going to concentrate on. If we hit publish, we get a summary of the episode that we've just produced. And as people play it back or watch it, this will update the counter so you can see who's using it. But what I'm interested in over here is sharing of my episode. And over here, I've got a copy embed code. If I click on that, it's copied it to the clipboard, so it's not going to show it to me, but it has copied it. So let's go into an I2 site. I'm just going to create a new content item here. And I'm going to put my embed code in here, but before I can do that, I need to change this over to the HTML view, so the code view. So I'll click on that and Control V to paste my embed code, update, something's there, submit. And we're done. So the actual podcast is just loading down the bottom here. So there's The Cow Wins podcast. Let me move this Zoom handlebar out of the play. So right, I've embedded audio inside my subject site very, very quickly. Okay, so I'm producing a test podcast today. Okay, so that's got the audio quickly and easily into the subject site. But the other reason we're making podcasts is to distribute these for people that want to sign up to my feed. Okay, so it's important that we get the information for how people can subscribe. All right, now that information inside Anchor is found within your settings area. If we click on settings, we can go to distribution. And the first piece of information they give us is the RSS feed to your channel. So you can copy that, and then anytime you make an episode in Anchor, if someone has signed up to your feed, they'll get an update and the new episode. And this is where they all go off to the gym and work out to you, talking to them about, you know, the psychology of cows or whatever it is that you're doing. So distributing this and making this is really, really simple. What do we do with an RSS feed? This is probably the most important question at this point in time. People need to sign up. So how do they subscribe to an RSS feed? Well, we need the link. We've got that. Then we need a product that will collect RSS feeds and give them access to the channel. In the cheat sheet that I've provided for those of you looking at it, I'm now going to be looking at, I'm going to open up a tool that's based in your browsers called InnoReader. InnoReader. There are many, many podcast aggregators out there. This one is free to use, InnoReader, and it will allow you to sign up to as many podcasts as you like. It's very, very simple. Under the subscriptions area on the left-hand side, all you need is an email address, a Google account, a Facebook account to sign up to this, by the way. And the only limitation in terms of the free accounts is how many subscriptions you sign up for. So I think this will let you sign up to 20 different podcast feeds. I've only got one in there at the moment, but I'm going to hit the subscription button, and up the top here there is those sound waves, which is how we add a feed. Click on that, paste in my anchor feed that I just did, and there's my feed. I've made a few podcasts on there already, so I'm able to click subscribe, and that's it. I've signed up to it, and every time a new episode comes in, the person will be able to click on this and get all of the episodes as they're published. At the moment, that cow episode is in transit, if you will, so it takes a little while before it becomes available on my channel. But I do have one that I've made here before, which is an exciting series about a pool cleaner called Rodrigo. So the other subscription that I've got down here that you might be interested in is a subject site in i2. Right, so this is a law subject, and they have produced recordings, video and audio, inside the subject site using Panopto, using CSU Replay. So that's what I'm going to show you now. When you make video or audio inside Replay, the students are able to subscribe to it. So that means that your lectures and your other content that you're adding into your CSU Replay folder, the students can subscribe to it using a tool like this, and every time you add something in there, they're going to get notified. So this means potentially a new model for how you want the students to consume what's going in to the subject site. So let's open up a subject site and get into that. Here's the CSU Replay folder. I'll just wait for it to open. I will stop in a second and answer some of the questions because I know a bunch of stuff has been coming through. Okay, so this should look pretty familiar to everybody. CSU Replay folder, there are some lectures and other things that have been recorded in here. In the top right-hand corner of your replay folder, there is an RSS button, a subscribe button. Students can click on that. They can go down to this subscribe to RSS, any of these options really, but iTunes depends on having iTunes. So there's probably more Mac users or Apple product users. I'm just going to use the subscribe to RSS function, which is going to give me a link up the top there. I'm going to take that hyperlink, go back to my INO reader product. So this is my RSS feed aggregator. I'm going to add a new subscription. Click on add feed, paste in that link. And now my CSU Replay folder is subscribed to. So every time I add content in there, they're going to get the update and they can listen to it on their mobile devices or whatever the case may be. Okay, so that will play back audio and video content. But remember, it's actually about the device that they're listening or watching it on. So if they're on a mobile phone, for example, they may not be using this product, INO Reader, and they're probably just getting audio. Okay, so that means if you're making audio in CSU Replay, that's fine. But if it's video, they'll just be able to listen to it. I'm going to stop there because I know I've been going at 1,000,000 miles an hour and there are lots of questions. So Prue, would you like to step me through some of those, please?
Yes, it has been a very, very busy chat box, but with some really great questions coming through. And I think Caroline noted how intensely all the academics are looking at the screen. I think that's because we're blown away with what this technology can do, but also thinking through how we can use this, because we can use this from our end of providing information to students. But there's now people asking, well, what could we do for students? Can students do their assignments using these different types of processes, and then thinking through some of the mechanics behind students using these types of tools for assessments. So I guess there's some questions around stepping you through the process around things like the music and the sound bites and the special effects we were hearing in Anchor FM, copyright issues around any of those, Lachlan?
Not with the audio that's being used in Anchor. That's all open source effectively or covered underneath Anchor. As long as you're using it within Anchor to make the episodes, that's not a problem.
Excellent, excellent.
Because it's hosted on this platform, basically is what I'm getting at.
Excellent. And it's a very intuitive tool to use with lots of really great sound bites, really good library embedded into that. A great one from Celia around students, can they download these types of recordings from the i2 site? So Panopto and Anchor FM podcasts, can you download them as a file, or are they purely through an RSS feed?
It's a really good question, and the answer depends on the product. So if you've made something in Anchor, for example, then by default, the audio is actually, and they've subscribed to it on a mobile device, then the audio is actually transferred to the device. However, it's not just an MP3 file that they're able to then give to someone else. It can only be played back within the particular the podcasting playback tool that they're using. So on the cheat sheet, for example, which I'll just bring up here for a sec, I've talked about a product on here, a free product called Pocket Cast, which is really an amazing app on your phones. If you haven't got it already, you should absolutely get it. It allows you to sign up to as many podcasts as you like and get them through onto your mobile phone, but it's only a mobile app. They don't have a website as such, a website-based service like iKnowReader. So Pocket Cast is for mobile. When they sign up to a feed, they can play it back inside Pocket Cast, but that doesn't mean that they've got the audio for the, like for example, the MP3 file on their computer or on their phone. They can't then share it on, apart from just referring someone to the link. So all the audio and the copyright, etc., is all maintained within the application. Right? And the same with iKnowReader. You're not downloading the MP3 file onto your device using these tools to then distribute to someone else. So they cover off on that aspect. But having said that, there are many ways for people to capture audio if they wanted to. All right, so it's a bit hard to say, no, it's impossible for them to get the audio file. It's not. Even using something like Zoom, we can capture audio if we wanted to, but it would be breaking copyright at that point. I will point out the difference between using third-party tools like this to play back audio and something like CSU Replay. When we put replay content inside our subject sites and students play it back, by and large, they've got the ability to download this audio unless you've turned that function off. Okay, there is a setting inside CSU Replay that you can do either at the individual recording level, or you can go to your folder settings level and you can turn off downloading. I'm telling you that you can do it. I'm not saying that you should do it because they're two different questions. There's also an accessibility question about whether or not we're obliged to make downloadable files available of learning materials to students as an accessibility issue. Because quite often it comes back to whether or not people have got access to steady internet connections, for example, or whether they go somewhere, download what they need to, rather than play it back streaming. So it is an individual question that you're going to have to think about case by case, really. So if we actually go into the settings for one of these recordings, I'm going to have a look and see if I can quickly find where that download option is. I always get lost in here for some reason. Anyone with the link? No, that's not it. In the output section is where you can define whether or not like the quality of your recordings, but also it'll give you subscription settings explicitly. No, there isn't the disable download button. I'll find it for you shortly anyway. Sorry, Prue, do you want to keep going with the questions?
Yeah, no, this is great. There's still quite a few questions coming through. Pete, Jane's brought up a really key point just around equipment, and the quality of equipment that we use when recording makes a huge difference to, I suppose, the output that we give our students. So where most of us are sitting here either with a headset or just using the mic on our laptop, they all vary in quality. I would highly recommend, if you are thinking of going into this, look at it as an investment, perhaps in purchasing something on the lines of I recommend the Blue Yeti Nano microphone. They are really fantastic USB microphones with a really fantastic sound quality that goes into those. I think we can see now that the future of online learning is, well, it's here to stay. Even if we come back to face-to-face, we're going to have flexible teaching and students will be online. So I think using something like a really good quality microphone makes all the difference. We've all listened to podcasts more than likely where the quality has been quite low, and you pick it up straight away and it can be quite distracting. So yep, really good point just around the quality of what you're using. So USB mics are really quite useful. Christy had an interesting question. If we don't like any of the free music in Anchor, is there anyone at CSU that can help us? That's a really good question, Christy. I might have to defer that to Lockie. I do remember we had some pins and some intro music in the past that was CSU specific, but I'm not too sure where we're at with something like that. Okay, do you know?
To be honest, I'd have to refer it onto the Brains Trust and see who's still around. That's the other question these days. I'm not sure if the stakeholders in this space from 3 years ago are still at the uni. So I've got some contacts in you know, the web office team and DIT that have worked with podcasts specifically in the past, and the digital media team. And I'll put the question to them, really. Where are we at on this at the moment? And I think a lot of those questions around the legals as well are really important to get fleshed out. So I'd like to get more of the official line on that question to that I can send back to everybody afterwards. But, you know, first and foremost for myself, I always like to show people the how-to get into the tools and start making their own stuff, and then get into the logistics later on, to be honest. There was a question in there as well about condenser mics versus dynamic mics. Personally, I've always used condenser mics when making podcasts, as I just found that the places that I was making the audio really needed me to have a close field of capture for the sound. So that meant I didn't want the cat and other things coming in from outside, and the space that I was using wasn't fantastic. So condenser mics have a better way of eliminating external noise. As opposed to a dynamic mic? It's a really good question though. I found the download section, sorry, before I forget, inside the settings in CSU Replay, under the overview tab, there is a downloads area here. And one of the options under the chevron there is no one. So you can actually disable downloading for your video files and your audio files inside Replay. This is done at the level of the individual recording, but you can also do it at your folder level. So I could go up here to my folder settings and do exactly the same thing. And that would mean any audio that I produced in my folder would not be downloadable. And of course, it's in a different location here. Okay, I'll come back to that. Sorry, Prue, more questions?
We've got a few questions just coming through around privacy. And so Jane had a really good question around the files created in Anchor FM. Are they private, or can anyone in the public find them? And it looks like at this point, Anchor FM don't support private podcasts or accounts. So that's
not on the free version for sure. Not sure about the paid accounts, but yeah, it ends up being public.
So they're just some more sorts of things I think to keep in mind when you're thinking through this. Some other questions. Oh, some excellent discussion around different types of mics, and some really strong advocacy around the Rode mics, which I highly recommend. They're also very good. Mm-hmm. And just a quick question as well around from Celia. So students can listen to the Anchor FM podcast directly from their iTunes site, but if they want to get this whole series, do they need, or notifications, will they need to go through the INO reader?
Well, they'll need to use some form of RSS feed aggregators, and there are lots of different tools out there. That's just one of them that happens to be free and web-based. So anyone with a browser, either on phone or on their computer, can use INO Reader. Pocket Cast is free, but mobile only. So that covers your signing up with a mobile device if you wanted to, or, pardon me, signing up through a computer, anything that has a web browser. Those two products will allow you to do that. But there are thousands of podcast capture and subscription type products. I will point out, what was I going to say? Oh, if you take the link from an Anchor episode, so let me take one of the episodes here. This is before I forget. Okay, so there's the cow. Here's the link to the episode. I can copy that here on my episode summary page. If I opened up a tool like Padlet, I can remember the address for those of you using Padlet walls inside your subject sites. This is quite a nifty feature. God, I need to use one that's not being used currently. I'll just make one quickly. That'll do. And I'll change the format so it's a stream. Hang on, close. Okay, so here's a Padlet stream with that amazing background. I can drop the link in here to my Anchor FM podcast, and it will give me a placeholder image, which will be my artwork from my podcast, and drop the podcast embedded directly into my Padlet stream. So that's another way of distributing your audio. It can go straight into a Padlet stream, and then people click on it and they're able to play back the audio. We'll wait for it to load. There we go. So if you're using Padlet in your subject sites and you're making audio like that and you'd like to also drop it into your Padlet stream, it's as easy as copying and pasting the link. So that's another way of distributing it.
Yep. Lockie, it's Pete Jeans. Can I ask a question?
Please, please.
So it occurs to me that if you're promoting a particular series of episodes of any podcast to your students or to a wider audience, like say past students or potential students, you have to point them to a feed aggregator, which means you have to encourage them to download a feed aggregator on their phone. How do you do that? Because there's thousands of them.
Well, I mean, you could certainly put them onto the one that I've suggested this morning, the mobile phone Pocket Cast app, as it's a free app.
Yeah.
I use that and I've found it to be amazing, and I'm always in favor of free apps that are really easy to use and effective. But there are many, I can't begin to count how many podcast subscription tools there are in the app stores.
And that's my point. That's my point. It's almost a marketing job to get people to sign up.
Yeah, well, otherwise they're literally going to be clicking on. You're going to have to provide links to individual episodes that you've created somewhere else, and they're going to have to click on those individually and play them back at the point that you've provided them. Otherwise, they are going to need a tool to do that. So
I reckon the school should be on every one of their I2 sites. They should be putting up a short list of feed aggregator options that everybody should download. That way it'll be easy. Yeah,
look, absolutely. If they've got at least a starting point or a benchmark that talks about, but that's also assuming that the subjects are all using, the same approach to delivery. So does this go at the subject level, or does it go on a course site? Or does it, is it part of information that's given to students at induction? Like, where's that point of provision where they're all getting the same information is my question.
Yep. Yeah, thank you so much.
No worries. All right, look, I realised that I've done a whole lot of talking. I'll just go back to the slides for a second to see if I've missed anything that I really wanted to look at. Prue, do you want to talk to some of these teaching ideas? How about we do that?
Yeah, thanks, Lachlan. This has been really great. And I think, again, we don't cover all of the teaching ideas because there just are so many with how we can use these. And Caroline raised a really good point in the chat box around, well, if we all use this, will we, are we risking fatigue here from students? And I think it's a case of really just thinking through why we're using the podcast, what it's for, is it value adding, is it our weekly lecture? And all of us are going to take a very different approach to that. But it's always great to talk to our colleagues as well and see what else we're providing for our students. So it might be that you use a weekly update for your podcasts, or it might be concept lectures or audio bites. And this is particularly really helpful for those hurdles or those sort of threshold concepts that we know students stumble on. It might be that you create a really nice, short, sharp recording that explains those key ideas for students. Maybe it's breaking down assessments, really sort of complex assessments, breaking them down and having a discussion. It can be around providing feedback to an entire cohort on an assessment, maybe your plan of attack for the week, something like that. It can also be a response to readings that students might have or that you might have for students. So helping them to understand how to read something, breaking it down for them. It's also a really nice idea to think about, well, if we provide students something in one way, so maybe we're providing students a reading, we can also provide them a podcast on that. It may be one we've created, it might be one that we find somewhere else, but offering them multiple modalities to learn from. It may not be the same material, but then you can get some great discussion from students who read the article and students who listen to the podcast, and they can talk about the same topic. So we can also have students creating podcasts, and many of us are using that in subjects, having students creating assignments that are podcasts, and also around those reflections. So thinking again that podcasts can be just about anything. We often think of them as being interviews, but they can be reflections, they can be audio diaries, all sorts of really fantastic options that we have there. So there's certainly some really great ideas, and as I was saying, Lachlan and I were certainly contacted by people who are already using these really fantastic types of media in their classes. So we had people who are doing interviews with people out in the industry and providing that for their students. So really fantastic opportunity to bring the industry into your classroom, your virtual classroom at this point. Oh, lots of tips and tricks around pacing. So listen to your recorded voice, get an appreciation of just how fast you're speaking. So when you listen to your favorite podcast, really take note of what you like about that podcast. How is it that the person's talking? Are they talking super fast like me because she knows she's running out of time? Hope not. Think about the pacing. Listen to yourself. As much as we don't like to hear our own voice, it really does pay off. A really good one around authenticity and production. And with this one, I think it's really important. We always say, students don't really want to see the polished creation that we think they do. I think let your authentic self come through as part of your podcast, and students really appreciate that. Don't get lost in transitions. Lachlan, I might let you speak to that one.
Oh yeah, I think it sort of speaks for itself. Whilst they're gimmicky and fun, the idea of animal sounds repeating every 5 minutes throughout my episode is probably likely to get me, hunted down by people. So,
it's like a shiny new toy.
It's the whole PowerPoint thing as well. If we go back far enough, looking at PowerPoint and people introducing the gun firing and the applause every time they move on to a separate point, etc. It gets a smile for about half a second, and then you think about what it's like to be in one of those presentations, to be continually exposed to that.
Absolutely.
Maybe there's a limit. Yeah.
Absolutely. Get it out of your system in a practice run of your podcast and use all the sound effects you possibly can. Make sure you also think about the RSS. So have a think about how our students will be listening to this. So some great points there earlier with Lachlan and Pete. And include your podcast details as part of your information for students. So make sure that they know where the podcast is and how they can access it, how they can get started with using it. Also, don't expect students to understand what to do with the podcast because it might be slightly different to what they've been used to previously. So what would you like them to do with the podcast? What are your expectations behind this? Are they to be taking notes? Is this something just to listen to, just to get them into the mood for your subject? Have a think about what you'd like them to do with that. Maybe a call to action at the end as well. So you're giving them something to do with what you've just told them is always something that's quite helpful. So lots of really fantastic tips and tricks that we have here. And we've also had some staff who have been running podcasts for a really long time, and we were contacted by the wonderful Anthony Chan, who was talking to us about how he's been using podcasts and he's written an article and was one of the first people to think about researching podcasts in higher education. Way back in the 2000s. So Anthony, I'm not too sure if you're here today, but we really want to thank you for getting in touch with us and telling us your story about podcasting and I guess the history behind podcasting at CSU. And hopefully we'll talk to you a bit further about maybe sharing that a little bit more as well. So lots of our colleagues are using podcasting in very different ways at the university. So it's really good to chat to each other and make sure you get onto people in that chat box. There's lots of great ideas there as well.
I'll just make one other point, Prue, for a
Yeah.
second about whilst we're talking about tips and tricks, etc.
Yeah.
I think sustainability is probably the most important issue when approaching any type of resource creation, but podcasts, it's just as applicable, because you're not going to put the effort into something like this if it's going to be a one-off, for example. That's highly likely. And that means you need to think about issues like decontextualization. So if you're going to include specific subject titles, specific times, dates, assessments, etc., that you're mentioning, that means that that audio is only going to be able to be used once. So if you're going to put the time in and the effort into creating a podcast series, etc., I guess keep reminding yourself, if I want this to be useful the next time round or for a wider audience, etc., what information maybe needs to be decontextualized so that it can be reused. You know, obviously we want you to get the best bang for your buck when you're putting the time into using a tool like Anchor for your casts. So just maybe stick it on a post-it note or something, decontextualize, make sure that it is reusable. Okay, there are a few extra additional resources that we've got on the end of the cheat sheet that you're all encouraged to have a look at, definitely. There's also a few lists of podcasts for those of you wanting to do a bit of a search or looking for some new inspiration of the audio kind. But there are thousands and thousands of podcast guides available out there for people that are far more experienced at making them than I am, that's for sure. And the last thing that we generally cover in each of our sessions, of course, is if you're able to provide any feedback on today's session, or you would like to request other forms of PD at all, by all means, please click on the Google form link that's in our chat pod and take a moment to provide that. Hi Michelle, sorry Prue. Prue and I are going to hang around for a little bit anyway, and we're happy to stick around and answer any questions, etc., or chat to people. But I'm going to be turning the recording off in just a moment, and I'd like to thank you all for coming out for another session with us. So thank you again.
Yeah, thanks, LK. And thank you again, Lachlan, for all the work you've put into this session. It's brilliant.